Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for April the 8th. What an exciting day we had on Tuesday. Shot up a massive amount. We hit right up against the 2735 algo resistance we had here from way back. And guess what? The selling started and did not stop. And this is something we talked about was going to happen. As the Fed continues to buy up everything, they're going to do it to force short covering. When they get this short covering, they're going to sell into that so they can keep doing this to help keep above this area. And they did a good job. Quite a ways up there. At the end of the day, you still have to look at the reality of the world. There's no business taking place that's justifiable. But that really doesn't matter when everyone believes that the Fed is going to keep throwing everything they can at it. Some people are going to make money. The hope is that with declining deaths and fewer cases, potentially the complete shutdown will be over and there'll be some semblance. But the return is much more difficult than this lockdown because starting up an uneven setup is going to be complicated at best. And there are going to be a lot of bumps in the road within that overall spike. Turning to the euro, nice spike back up of the euro, of course, right across that minimum threshold that we've had here for quite some time, because at the end of the day, they really can't afford the euro to plummet and add that to the difficulties that exist, because it's bad enough with where things are and the Fed having to quietly bail out the Eurozone, which we're not going to hear about until a couple of years later. Just like in 2008, you didn't hear about the 11 trillion that they gave in credit facilities to Europe until well after the fact, when nobody's looking. When everything's okay, then they'll do it. If things don't work out, it could even be longer, so we'll see. From an oil standpoint, again, the U.S. is going to be buying up as much as they can. Is that still going to be enough? There's a massive glut of oil, and you're getting close to, without literally having them stop a week or so away from being at capacity for storage. Then what do? I mean, you can keep pumping if you know where to put it. That's when they have to start throwing oil at people for free or at substantial discounts to the market, and that's what you're going to see. And that could drive, there's the potential that you could drive oil to near free levels in some cases when people just have to get rid of it, because it's far more expensive to shut down a well and then try and restart it. Because if they cap them, that's pretty much a death sentence because of the amount of time it takes. And so the hope is that this ends soon enough and that you can sustain those losses and then keep going. From a gold standpoint, it's going to continue to be at these elevated levels, if not higher, as the anticipation for this massive flood of money coming in is only going to drive inflation in most categories. It was a phenomenally busy day on the 5K here. Look at that chart. That's crazy time. Anyway, we were going through and I was talking about the Power Mode 2 here, and I'm going to be sending out an adjustment to it for everyone that will limit it to these three lines that exist. And what they do is they're helping to combine the DOC, the MBI, along with elements of the shakeout within one simple mode, just to make it easier. It does have an interesting function. It creates these dramatic, what I call sigma events. And in this particular case, in a bullish move, you can make projections for the values going up as well as down. We kind of did that later on in the day. The signals were pretty clean. This is still the pink 2. Haven't converted the extra, the dotted lines though are where the MBI signals came in. And we were talking about those as they were happening as I was working on that program in between. And we talked about even this one that came in where we were coming up through, signal crossed and it reverted, but we talked about how within this extended stretch here, we were starting to get to a point where it's easier to see that when you don't have DOC spread reset recently, you can begin to look for the breakdown periods. And in this one, we look for the cyan here to drop below the 13 level, and that corresponded right here. It was just before the DSC steel had already crossed below cyan, which was negative there. Here it did pop back up, so giving a sell signal on what was a pop sign, even though the candle finished to the downside. But as we came down, it ended up giving us a great buy configuration. There was a good setup within there, and we were talking about that thoroughly, and boom, it traveled nicely, and then we ended up, as we got towards the end of the day, with some nice sell-off events as things went across, and then it started to get more active. Too far, I could slide that back just a fraction. Peaked out here, kind of muddied because the DOC spread took place all the way back here. So you just had this long period of, nothing happening, and that was signal equivalent right here, and then it came back down and then popped up dramatically at that particular point, indicating that there was going to be a significant move of 20 plus points. And we rolled right over with the spike above, and as I was pointing out, this is an interesting trigger setup because it triggers up to warn, and then it signals, and then it triggers up, and then signals. So it takes two moves, which is kind of nice because it sort of gives you a warning of where things are headed, and in this particular case, started to roll over. So even moves above it, those are signaling for shorter, and it continued to cave, and you would look for a move where you have a pivot up of the cyan, and then it crossed below, like in this particular case, it did that, boom, and then literally turned around and gave the sell signal just about 5 bars later, and that kept that short active until right about here, which put in an MBI candle right there that you can see, because actually on the Diocon paint that was a void where there was no signal like over here that we're seeing right now in aftermarket. And then you have these green with the blue numbers. Those were from combination of readings that were helping to identify the most optimal buy configurations. But when they happen within the node steel reset, it doesn't take much for the conversion of it's not quite a DOC spread because the cyan never dipped underneath, but where you get the rejection of green to cyan, and then that steel crosses below, and that was a clean signal for lower again, where we then produced another buy configuration. Came in a little bit later over here for the power mode 2. So kind of missed this whole back and forth sideways and took it right before it propelled up, and then signaled lower with the break right here, confirmed it. And so this is the confirm of your short signal that, oh, you need to be thinking about that you could end up with a cover situation when it crosses below, and getting close to that right about now could actually signal that it's time to cover. If that does cross below, the bar's not over yet, so we'll see if it does. But that's how powerful that is, and it gives us a very clear idea of what to expect. So it makes it clean and easy, and of course with only 3 lines it's much simpler, but you won't even have to worry about that because you're just going to see the MBI show up, and then you'll end up with the magenta appearing as opposed to early here, which was off the correct DOC spread, a little bit later when it actually triggers in a full mode. So that hopefully will make it easier to identify those concepts. As always, I will update you as I have things put together, and we'll be on the Skype chat. Trade well. Talk to you later.